Well, our next interview for standing in the House of Keys general election in September is Michael Josem. Mr. Josem, you were here only, it seems, weeks ago, but it's obviously some time ago, for the by-election, and you got very close in that. I think we better pick up, first of all, you picked a different area to stand in, because that was the Douglas South by-election, and you're going for Douglas East this time. Why?
Yeah, that's right, because I'm running for Douglas East, for all of us, because it's fundamentally, it's my community. It's where I work, it's where I serve, it's where I play, it's where I meet.
But, why then the Douglas South? Just because it was a by-election?
Well, I wanted to honour the legacy of Bill, my good friend Kate Costain, and also Bill Malarkey. And so a lot of people encouraged me to stand because they wanted someone to be a strong voice for Douglas South. But that's in the past. The people of Douglas South, made their decision, and Mr. Quine and Mr. Christian were elected. And I know it's terribly unfashionable these days to accept the results of close elections, but I unreservedly do, and I wish Mr. Quine and Mr. Christian all the best.
So, I think where you are, you're in central, aren't you? So you're right on the cusp of everything, really. You're right.
Yeah, I think I'm 20 feet or something outside the boundary.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but this is like Douglas East. It's where I work. It's where I serve. That's
right. Let's just deal with this thing about is it the Taxpayers Alliance you're a member of, and how that conflicts with the Lib Van, because obviously it's been a topic of conversations, would you say?
Okay. So
how's that work?
So I am employed full time by the Manx Taxpayers Alliance, which fights for three ideas: the idea that government should be transparent, that taxes should be low, fair and simple, and that we should get good value for money out of the taxes that we do pay. And so that's my full-time employer. And so, we do a lot of research, we do a lot of investigation. And
is that transparent? I mean, people behind it are backing you. Are they all, is it all documented sort of thing?
Yeah, look, the people who fund the Manx Taxpayers Alliance are Manx taxpayers, they're the residents of the Isle of Man. Yeah.
Right. What we're going to do then is find out what you think so far of the government. Let's say we probably haven't had much change in the last since the last interview, but how do you think it's all been going, this government, and what would you do differently?
Yeah, so there are some things that they've done well and some things that they've done badly. And so for example, as we spoke last year in August, one of the things that I was a big fan of back in August 2020 was about increasing the border testing and strengthening the quarantine measurements to try and avoid a second and a third lockdown. Obviously, the government at the time in November, they voted down proposals in Tynwald to increase border testing. The result being we had a second and a third lockdown, which is sad. And so I heard from my friends, I heard from business owners, I heard from people across the community. Especially that third lockdown was painful, not just economically, but in terms of the disruption to education, the disruption to mental health.
And you'd have done things differently then, would you?
Yeah, as I said 12 months ago, is that much stronger testing. The government made the wrong choice, and I regret that. But then again, look, I think that every single member of the government means well. But across things like the Promenade, things like the Liverpool landing stage, unfortunately, they're just not up to it.
And this is what you write a lot about. You're big on your social media. You're kind of always mentioning these things, but you also got to comply by what you signed up to for the Liberal Van Party, haven't you, as well? Do they conflict at all ever? I mean, you're firmly on the page of Lib Van policies.
Yeah. I don't see any conflict. I think the Liberal Vannin is a wonderful organisation, set up by Peter Carron many years ago as a wonderful advocate for the interests of the people of the Isle of Man.
And I should say, like to everyone, if you disagreed in the future, you would resign, but would you then go for a by-election, or would you just become an independent, or would that never happen?
So I cannot imagine any circumstances which would lead me to resigning from Liberal Vannin.
But if you did, would you stand down, or would you go for by-election?
I cannot imagine such circumstances. I don't know what else to say. So I am Liberal Vannin 100%.
Okay, just asking because obviously it's happened in the past.
Yeah.
Local issues, Douglas East. It's always one that attracts a lot of people to stand. It's quite transigent area, I think a lot of people see it as, with voters. What are you targeting, and what are you being told, first of all, on the doorstep? What's the issues? Yeah,
so we're here on Palace Road, right in the heart of Douglas East. So if you think of the constituency, if we start at the bottom of the hill, we have the Promenade, right? And what a debacle that has been. It's now taken longer than World War II, which is absurd. For 2.5 miles of road, and the fundamental, the specific error that they made is they started digging up the road without knowing what was fully underneath it, because there were all these, ancient services that were unmapped and uncharted. And so that's fundamentally the underlying reason. But secondly, we then have a failure to properly hold accountable people for when they make mistakes. And so now we have this, experimental roundabout at the bottom of the hill here, which, I think is really confusing, and it's deliberately confusing. And I understand the strategy that they want to make the road a shared space, that they want to create uncertainty so that drivers slow down. But I think that has obvious dangers, most obviously to people with disabilities, most obviously to cyclists. I rode my bike here and it'd be dangerous. Now, if we continue along the promenade, we come across to the Regency Hotel and the businesses there. We've got Rotary Club membership is down by about half over the last 10 years, which is a reflection of the a weakness in many of our institutions. If we think of further, the Methodist Church, attendance at the Methodist Church up at the other end of the prom is down by about half over the last 10 years. We then have Summerland, which is in ruins, a tragedy when that first tragedy took place 40, 50 years ago now. But it's also a shame that this site is left in ruins. We should be, using these beautiful sites, some sort of appropriate memorial for the victims of the tragedy, and some sort of appropriate development so that the people of Douglas East can use it. Then if we continue along to Nobles Park, we've got the council looking to introduce and change the parking there. I think we need to be very careful that the council does not end up pushing cars out onto the neighbouring streets. I think that would be a retrograde and a bad movement, because we don't want to make the parking problem worse around there. Then as you head down the road down into Woodburn Road, you get into the commercial centre of the town. The retail, the shops and so on. And one of the difficulties I think that a lot of retail shops have in 2021 is competing with online purchasing. And so I think the real opportunity for the commercial heart of Douglas East to thrive is in ensuring that the retail experience is more than just a transaction, but it's an experience. Sort of like people go across to Liverpool One, not just to shop at Primark, but for a whole experience. And so I think that's really got to be the opportunity for growth there. And then as we come back around, we get into the villa and chatting to the business owners there. They will tell you, first and foremost, about the reduced foot traffic. But second of all, the business owners there have suffered a whole lot from the dust and the damage to their homes.
I mean, they're saying August this year, so by the time the election comes on, there should be a promenade in place. So that may be put to one side.
You would think so, wouldn't you? Well, that's what a normal person would think. But they now have this plan that they're going to stop building the horse tram halfway along the prom, and then at some stage in the future they're going to dig up the prom again and put the horse tram along. And I think that's madness. Okay. Get it done, get it over and done with, because the people of Douglas East have suffered long enough.
In the last few minutes, I want to find out what you have planned. So, again, the usual questions here. Where do you would serve best if you got in? Would you work with government? Do you see yourself being eventually a minister, that sort of thing? Where would you fit?
I think that's taking it a step too far. I haven't even earned the trust of the people.
Where would you like to be part of? Which team then? Where do you think you fit best?
Look, I haven't thought about that.
You must have thought about where you would be best suited, surely.
No, because to do it, first of all, I would need to get elected, then you'd need to get 23 other members of the House of Keys elected, then you would need to elect a Chief Minister, then the Chief Minister needs to choose a team.
What is your skill set to use to the best ability for the Isle of Man's point of view? In which department would you fit best?
Yeah, so I'm not interested in even thinking about some sort of departmental allocation, because I'm interested in the issues. These issues are the local issues of the promenade, of the decline in our institutions, and then of course there's we need to ease the squeeze on the cost of living, the cost of housing, which is
now that's a national issue, right? The housing.
But it's a national and local. It's very personal. You chat to a lot of residents, and it's passionate.
What is
they're struggling.
You don't want people to have too many houses to rent, or you want more houses built. What's your solution?
So the current situation is it's sort of like a game of musical chairs, where we have a limited number of chairs, but what's happening is the biggest and the strongest kid is knocking out the weaker kid from getting out home. And so we need to do two things. First of all, we need to ensure there's enough chairs, there's enough houses for everyone.
So build more houses.
Yeah, and then we also need to ensure that housing, as my good friend Peter Carron would say, is a nest for families, not a nest egg for speculators.
Yeah, so some sort of legislation to stop speculators.
Yeah.
All right. And to finish with, who would you like as the Chief Minister?
So as far as I know, Alex Allenson's the only candidate so far. It depends who the other candidates are, right?
Well, you can pick anyone you like. I mean, on the basis it's going to be someone presumably it's already in there now.
Yeah. Oh well, like, you never know. Peter Karen might come back. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Laurie Hooper would be great.
Would you not want
Peter Karen would be great. Laurie Hooper would be great.
Is Peter Karen standing? Going to make an announcement?
Not that I know. But like, if we're choosing random people, why not?
So who would you like?
Yeah, all those people. Like, I don't know who the options are. So Laurie would be a wonderful candidate, I'm sure. He's obviously served the people of Ramsey and very well. And so, maybe you'd stand again, Paul, and you could do it.